What is up, everyone? We're back for another video, and this week I've been spending time with the Mercedes EQB, which is the all-electric compact SUV from Mercedes. So, as always, I'm gonna tell you guys everything that you need to know about the car. So keep it locked and let's go. So, as you may know or may not know, the EQB is based on the Mercedes GLB, which is the EQB's internal combustion engine sibling. So, essentially, most of the car looks the same as the petrol and diesel powered GLB, but there are a few differences, and some of them include the blue EQB badging, the alloy wheels, which are aerodynamically efficient, and they also have some blue accents in them. And coming over to the front, the headlights also have some blue accents, as well as this cool LED light bar at the front. We've also got a black panel where you would otherwise find the radiator grille. So that's been closed off because obviously there's no engine, so no cooling needed at all. Moving over to the back of the EQB, as you can see, again, the car is pretty much unchanged, but you do get this LED light strip which runs across the back of the car, and it does look pretty cool at night as well. And while we're at the back, we can quickly chat about the boot space, which, as you can see, is quite commendable. It's large enough to fit all of your groceries for your grocery runs, or even loading up some luggage for a road trip with your family. However, the boot space is a bit compromised because of the charging cables which you do get in the boot, and unfortunately there isn't anywhere else to store them, so just keep that in mind. As you can see, we're now sitting at the back of the EQB, and I'm sitting behind my own driving position, and as you can see, I've got loads of knee room, tons of headroom, and footroom is pretty decent too. However, my one complaint about the back seats, however, is that the actual bench is quite low. So I'm finding that my knees are quite high and it's quite uncomfortable. And I can imagine that on longer road trips, this would be quite a bit of an issue. But overall, there's enough creature comforts here. We've got some air vents, we've got one charging port there. We've got a pretty large door bin there for a water bottle, and we've also got some cup holders over here as well. So we're now at the front of the EQB, and as you can see, it is a lovely place to be in. Quite similar yet again to its GLB sibling. So of course, you do get all of the creature comforts that you would expect from this car. So, in front of the driver, you've got this familiar steering wheel, and this is, as we do know, the previous generation steering wheel, but in my opinion, probably the best one yet because this had the actual physical buttons to control the digital instrument cluster in front of the driver for the right hand side over here, and the left hand side controls the infotainment screen over here. So these were quite easy to use, really, really lovely, especially because you could actually feel when you had done something after pressing a button. So again, you've got these two dual screens over here, which look absolutely crisp. I mean, guys, these screens are like so good to look at, so good to interact with, really, really easy too. So, of course, you've got the two screens, and over here you can have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You've also got live traffic updates over there as well, so that's quite cool too. Unique to this EQB model are these rose gold bits in the air vents, which are quite cool if you ask me. Overall, it's a nicely laid out cabin. You've got the mouse track over here, which is quite a gem to use. Makes the whole operation of the system really, really nice and enjoyable to use too. You've also got a volume scroller over there. A physical scroller, guys. That is so scarce these days. But anyway, we've got one here, and we've got some shortcuts to some of the infotainment system functions, such as the Navi, the radio, and the media, parking controls, as well as your dynamic select control over there as well. Practicalities in the EQB, of course, are plenty. You've got two cup holders over here, which are quite large. As you can see, they fit a large water bottle. You've also got a wireless charging pad over there. You've got a USB-C port over there, as well as two more USB-C ports in there as well. Also, on the topic of this, you've got a pretty large cubby hole over there as well, so that's quite nice. And you've got a decently sized glove box as well. Overall, the cabin is quite spacious, it's really well laid out, and the use of the materials in here is also of a really decent material as well. So I'm really happy with that. So we're now going for a drive, and something quite cool about electric cars is just how comforting and relaxing they are to drive. I mean, I've been whizzing around mostly in the city, and it's so comfortable, so quiet, so soothing. I mean, at times it's also quite funny to see how people are just sort of shocked to see how this car, which looks like what they probably familiar with, but obviously with some of the differences, it does sort of raise some eyebrows as to what exactly is this. But anyway, most importantly, also another thing is how quiet it is. You know, obviously because you don't have an engine, so there is no sound. So a lot of people are just always so shocked to see that there's no sound coming from this car. But anyway, so the EQB has two electric motors, one on the front axle and one on the rear axle. And essentially, what that does is it allows for four-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive rather. So this car does have Mercedes 4Matic system, so it does offer a safety net of some sort. So we've got a 66.5 kilowatt hour battery, and all in all, under your right foot, you've got essentially 215 kilowatts and 520 newton meters of torque. It's quite plentiful. This car is really, really powerful, guys. I mean, why are we not moving? This car is really quite powerful, and I don't think anyone opting for this car will struggle in terms of, or complain rather, in terms of power delivery, especially thanks to, thank you, my good sir, especially thanks to the 4Matic system, which really does give you confidence as a driver. So, that said, Mercedes claims that you will get up to 423 kilometers on a single charge of the battery. And in a more realistic setting in the real world, using aircon and all of these other variables which have been thrown at me, I've been getting a more realistic figure of around 400 kilometers. I did take it for a charge during my test, and I got a maximum range reading of 440 kilometers. But as soon as I turned on the aircon, it plummeted down to about 410 kilometers. So that is something that you do need to keep in mind. Of course, being an electric car, it is quite easy to get addicted to the instant torque that these cars do offer, but that does come at a cost, and that cost is, of course, your range. So if you're going to be playing with, well, what would be a loud pedal in an ice car, but if you do play with the throttle quite a bit, you will see your range dropping quite drastically. But the nice thing is, if you do drive quite sensibly, then your range does get it does get you quite a long way. But of course, being a petrol head, it is quite fun to do that from time to time. Of course, aiding you in your driving experience is the dynamic select button that I did speak about on earlier, and you've got eco, comfort, sport, and individual driving modes. And I think they are quite self-explanatory. So eco essentially limits power and the throttle sensitivity, and sport and comfort obviously also quite self-explanatory. Comfort is basically the car's most comfortable setting, and whereas sport is the car's full power mode, and individual is where you can set up the car just exactly how you like. So that is quite cool as well. So adding on to the whole electric vehicle driving experience, you've of course got these pedals over here behind the steering wheel, but this being an electric car, it obviously doesn't have any gears or yeah, no gears or a transmission rather. It's got a one-speed transmission. So essentially, what these are for controlling the regenerative braking that you get on the EQB. So essentially, I'm now in D minus, and that is allowing for one pedal driving. If I flip it over, so I press the plus button once, it stays or moves back into D, normal D. So that's essentially where the car will coast just ever so slightly with minimal regenerative braking and essentially minimal slowing down of the car. And if I press the plus button one more time, it shows me a D plus sign in the instrument cluster over there, and that essentially allows for the most amount of coasting. So obviously these will suit different driving situations and scenarios. So I've mostly kept the car in D minus because the more the car regenerates energy, the more it basically returns that energy back into the battery, essentially allowing for your range to get you a lot further. So, we're going to chat about charging, and the EQB has been quite pleasant to live with, and of course, much of that experience does come down to your ability to charge. So, when you do buy a Mercedes EQB, Mercedes or any Mercedes EQ model rather, Mercedes will come and install a wall box for you at your home free of charge. So that essentially takes away a lot of the worry and the stress around charging and having enough range all the time. So my experience has obviously been a bit different because I don't have a wall box plugged in at my house, but essentially I've had access to very fast charging stations in and around. So, Mercedes, nothing, thank you very much. So, as I was saying before I was interrupted, my experience has been quite pleasant thanks to the fast chargers, which I do have access to around where I stay. So, the closest charger to me is a 75 kilowatt fast charger at another manufacturer's dealership, which phew, it makes the whole experience of testing an EV so pleasant because, as I mentioned, it is a fast charger, and essentially, I've been able to charge this car from about one quarter of juice left to about full in just an hour, which has been quite extraordinary. And it really does make for a pleasant experience. So now we get to the pricing of the Mercedes EQB. So this model is the progressive model. So it is at the bottom of the EQB lineup. And it comes in at 1,381,000 Rand. Of course, this one does have some options added to it, so that does raise the price slightly. Um, in comparison to other EVs on the market, I think that the EQB is a bit pricey, and I'll tell you why. Comparing this to the BMW iX3, which is about 20,000 Rand cheaper, the iX3 does make for a better value proposition, given that it is slightly bigger. It offers more practicality and even better standard specification than this EQB. I mean, this EQB doesn't even have electric seats. I'm having to manually operate the seeds, and there's just a whole bunch of other stuff that the EQB is missing, such as leather seats, which the iX3 gets as standard. And as such, I do think that the EQB is just a bit overpriced for what you're getting. But looking at it overall as a product on its own, it is a really good product. It does offer a great EV experience, and there isn't much to complain about except for the things I've just mentioned now when comparing it to the BMW iX3. Overall, it's been great to live with the EQB, It's been a really pleasant car. It's practical, it's spacious, it's a really good car. And overall, I think a lot of people will be quite compelled to go for these, especially if you really are in the Mercedes stable already. So overall, I think it is a good product, but my only concern is, of course, comparing it to some other rivals which do make more compelling cases. Overall, that's it from me from this video. It's been great. It's been amazing, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys noticed the increase or the improvement in sound quality, rather. I know a bunch of you have been complaining about it in the comments, and I have been reading those comments, so thank you guys. But yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next video. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, don't forget to tell your friends to tell their friends to watch more of these videos. Anyway, catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.